Hi, and welcome back to the Gluten Free RN podcast. This is episode 66 of the Gluten Free RN podcast, and I'm Nadine the Gluten Free RN. So welcome back, and today we're going to discuss how to easily go gluten-free and or paleo. I get asked a lot of questions about how easy it is and what people need to do to change, and today we're going to talk about that. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome back to episode 66 of the Gluten Free RN podcast. I'm still Nadine the Gluten Free RN. Welcome to all new listeners, and also welcome to everybody that's been listening to every episode since I began the Gluten Free RN podcast. I wanted to step back and really investigate how to go gluten-free easily so that people can, one, review what they're already doing, and two, for those that are new to the gluten-free diet or trying to decide what to do, because it can be confusing, just to give some people a review and or a primer of what it means to be gluten-free and how to do it easily. One of the things I hear over and over again is that it's too difficult, or people don't even want to try it because, God forbid, they feel better. Then what do? Do they stay with it, or do they go back to the way they always ate? There's so many options and really not very many answers for people. So I wanted to review all of that today so that we can move forward and hopefully you can feel better for the long term, not just for the short term. Because once you go gluten-free and or paleo and you feel better, that needs to be sustained. You really do want to feel better for your life. You don't want to just do it for a short term and then go back to your bad habits or the way you used to eat and potentially feel bad again. So we're going to talk about how to sustain a gluten-free and or paleo diet and lifestyle. First, recognize how you feel. And by that, I mean, no part of your body should be demanding your attention every day in the form of pain or discomfort or nagging, tweaky, weird feelings in your belly or gurgling or burping or farting or whatever your body is doing. It should really just be an entity that gets us through time and allows us to do things effectively, whether that's work or play or all of the above. So your body should not be talking to you or demanding your attention. Because if it is, then there's something wrong and you need to deal with it. One of the ways that we deal with it is we identify what is causing that pain, the underlying condition or the underlying problem or the underlying cause of that pain or discomfort or aches. And believe it or not, a lot of our symptoms can be traced back to the food that we're consuming or eating. There's intrinsic factors, things such as hormones and how our body functions. And then there's extrinsic factors, such as the food we eat, the medication we take, the things that we're exposed to environmentally. So today we're going to talk about the things that we're exposed to environmentally, such as our food and our drink and our medications, because those are the things that are extrinsic and have extrinsic impacts on our bodies. So the food you take in, the food that you eat, is under your control. You get to decide what you eat. And a lot of us think that, we really have very few choices, but we have very many choices, and you get to decide what you eat. Despite what doctors or your friends or anyone else actually suggests or demands or tries to get you to eat, you have control of that. So I know there's a lot of negative media about the gluten-free diet or a paleo diet or a low carbohydrate, high fat diet. And it really is individual. So I highly recommend that you find a practitioner or someone that you trust that can help you make decisions for your body type and what your body needs, because everybody is fundamentally very similar in what our body needs. But then there's other factors that need to be taken into account as we're getting our health back or we're trying to maintain our health. As I've said before, it's much easier to maintain health than it is to try to regain it. Sometimes it's very difficult, and sometimes damage is done, and it's hard to undo that damage, or it's hard to undo that damage, especially if that damage involves taking out an organ, such as an appendix or a gallbladder. We can't put that back. We can't get those organs back. So sometimes we consider that damage done, but then we move forward. So how do you easily go gluten-free or paleo? Number one, you really do have to get rid of the excuses as to why you cannot do something such as change your diet. And some of those excuses that I hear are, well, it really is too expensive. It takes too much time. It's inconvenient. My family never ate this way or taught me how to cook. None of my family will do it with me, so there's no point in me doing it. I wouldn't even know how to go shopping for food. There's many reasons or excuses people have for not trying to change their diet. I recognized early on that people would watch scary movies and they would, talk about all kinds of things, but very few people will actually talk about the food they eat. And it's very threatening when anybody suggests that perhaps a diet change would be necessary, that perhaps a diet change would actually help make them healthier and allow them to not feel so bad all of the time. So it's really important that you get rid of the excuses of why you can't go gluten-free or paleo. It really is no more expensive. And, well, you have to buy food anyway. So why not buy food that is good for you and will feed your body and keep you healthy or help you get better and healthier over time? Because food is medicine. And I say that as a nurse who had no clue herself for a long time that food is in fact medicine. If you had family members that knew this right along or had this knowledge, or perhaps you're a descendant of Hippocrates who said food is medicine, then bully for you. But most of us over the course of our lifetimes had learned that, anything we could eat was fine for us. And that was actually baloney. Kind of a little bit of a joke there, but a lot of the food that's in the grocery stores and is available today is not real food. It's actually a non-food. And it is not good for us or good for our bodies for a number of reasons. And that's playing out in our inability to stay healthy, our autoimmune diseases that are epidemic, the autism that's epidemic. There's so many factors that are affected in our bodies by what we eat. So simply by changing the way we eat, we can either maintain our health or help our body return to homeostasis, or a nice state where our body is not talking to us or screaming at us all the time that something is very wrong. So first thing to do, of course, is to get rid of those excuses, stop buying non-foods and things that really are expensive and don't have any bang for their buck. So things like soda, sugar coffees, those foo-foo drinks that people get every day because they want to reward themselves. They're really empty calories. And fast non-food, please don't consider fast food as food because it just simply is not. Plus, if you're on a gluten-free diet, there's no way that those fast food restaurants give an iota about cross-contamination or contamination with gluten or dairy or anything else. Who knows what's in that stuff? That truly is mystery meat, mystery food, not even food. And it definitely is empty calories. It might fill you up for a little while, might put something in your belly, but your body is not going to be able to run off that. Things like highly processed boxed, bagged, or frozen foods, anything that's highly processed. If you look at the ingredients, there tends to be just 5 or 7 or 8 ingredients in every processed food article, non-food thing, whatever that is. And those things tend to be based on wheat, rice, corn, and any other subsidized food. And it tends to get processed and then colored in a different way and labeled as a different type of food. But the reality is that most Americans eat very few varied foods in their diet. Most people eat the same 10 to 15 foods over and over and over again. And when you do that, you are denying your body the ability to absorb nutrients, potentially causing damage, especially if you're gluten intolerant or celiac. So really do pay attention to what you're eating. And people are like, oh, you think all of this is so easy. Honestly, when I did this, 12 years ago now, I didn't think it was easy. I thought it was overwhelming. I was kind of shocked at how little I knew about the food I was eating. And really, I had eaten the same food that everybody else in America had eaten for decades, 4 decades, before I found out that it was harming my body in a way that would have killed it within short order had I continued on eating those same foods. So now, 11 years later, I'm alive. I'm so much better. My body is healing or healed at this point. And I don't have those nagging aches and pains and bloating and gas issues that I used to have. A lot of that is just simply gone. So now I work really hard at maintaining my health. So at this point, I would say stop eating the things that are not foods and then look at other foods to start eating. Try new things. Diversify your food repertoire. Try real foods and find out what the difference between organic and conventional means. Many of the grocery stores will have an organic section or a few organic products. And you have to pay attention. Is it organic or is it conventional? Conventional means that they typically will use herbicides and pesticides, might be genetically modified, and you really do need to know that there is a difference. Because even in the absence of celiac disease, the glyphosates or Roundup ready products, food, whatever it is going to cause a leaky gut. A leaky gut is essentially non-celiac gluten sensitivity or celiac disease causes a leaky gut. And these pesticides do the same thing. We know that Roundup or the pesticides will cause a leaky gut, even in the absence of celiac disease. It's what those pesticides do to the bugs. They cause the bugs themselves to have a leaky gut. And those pesticides do the same thing to us. So diversify your food repertoire, try real foods, and walk around the produce section and go, you know what, I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to try it. Or I've never had cauliflower that was shaped like that, or purple, or yellow, or orange. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try the different foods that I've never tried before. And I highly recommend that you do get the organic versions of those foods, especially the fresh produce. And as I said, I went through the steep learning curve myself. So I would recommend that you stick with food sources that are going to make it easy for you. And by that, I mean grocery stores that will cater to people that are on a whole food diet or looking for organic foods. Where I tend to shop for my food are grocery stores such as Whole Foods, natural grocers, my local co-ops or co-ops wherever I'm traveling. I really do like to put money back into the co-ops, both locally where I live and when I'm traveling. So I will look for those stores very specifically, because I know that everything in them is organic and I don't actually have to worry too much about that when I shop at co-ops. And organic means, or should mean, that no herbicides or pesticides, glyphosates, are used. I also buy a lot of my meat and fish, eggs, and produce from local farmers. I know where the local farmers have their stands that are open pretty much year-round here in Oregon. And I have local farmers such as Farmer Dave. Hi, Farmer Dave, I love you. Where we can get grass-fed, no antibiotic, no hormone beef and pork and lamb. And I can actually call those farmers up and ask them questions about their practices. Farmer Dave still helps me unpack my packages of beef or whatever I happen to get from him into my freezer. That's how close I am to the people that produce my food. Not everybody has that option. I am extremely lucky and thankful for that. But do the best you can with what you have available. At one point, I had to tell a woman newly diagnosed with celiac disease that she had to move from where she lived because she just did not have access to any food that was fresh or organic or anything. She lived in a food desert despite living in an area of California where they do produce a lot of food, but she didn't have access to that. So she did in fact move and got a lot healthier because of it. Learn how to pack your breakfast, lunch, and or dinner for work or school, wherever you live, whatever you do. Pack your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And make it simple. None of this is hard. If you're finding it really hard, then you're doing it wrong. And that's not a criticism. It's just supposed to be helpful for you because none of this should be hard. It's fresh fruit, so peeling a banana or cutting up an apple or just eating an apple, peeling an orange, slicing up a grapefruit, sauteing up some greens such as collard greens which by the way, I love collard greens, just maybe blanched and sauteed in some bacon fat or some olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, very simple, but extremely tasty and very good for me. So dark leafy greens, sauteed or raw, really good. And if you have an opportunity to put in a garden, please think about that. It's so easy to grow your own organic food, and it's cheap too. It's like growing money. Even if you just put it in some pots, so you can grow a couple rows of greens and kale, which is very hardy, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. You can look into it as a hobby or just as, I'm going to grow my own food because it's cheap. A packet of seeds costs $2 and I can grow all the zucchini I want for an entire year, plus have some to give away. So consider putting in a garden. Try new foods. Pack your breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you don't have access to food where you work or at school. Take control of your house and your food and the things that you eat and put into your system. It's very important that somebody takes control. Otherwise, you're just going to be at the mercy of the advertisers and the grocery stores and the food producers that tell you what to eat. You really do have to get re-educated about what food is. I can tell you, as someone who had to go through this themselves, it is amazing how many things I thought were true about the food I was eating. There are just bold-faced lies about what food is and if it's good for me. And I realized that the simpler my food is and the less processed it is, the better it is for my body. And food is energy for my body, but I'm a foodie. I love food. So anybody that has had me cook for them or has eaten at my house, or if I do a pop-up dinner with the family or friends, they will say, oh my gosh, it's the best food I've ever eaten, minus the cheap fillers such as rice and bread and things like that. I just don't bother. I give people real good food and take out the cheap fillers such as rice and typically white potatoes. Although I do use some white potatoes at this point, I don't have an issue with nightshades anymore But typically, I used to rely solely on sweet potatoes and yams. And I used to say that I didn't like yams, but as happened with me, my taste buds changed once I changed my diet. So not only do I like yams now, I actually adore them. I think they're really tasty. And if I'm even making mashed potatoes, white potatoes, I will throw in some sweet potatoes and yams, mostly for the color, because I love bright colored food. I love the food that tastes good and has a lot of flavor naturally. And by that, I mean, typically for spices and whatnot, I'll use the Bragg's jar of spices and olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper. Sometimes I use curry, and very simply cooked, my food is extremely tasty on its own with minimal spices or seasoning. So don't make this hard. And, sauteing up some vegetables in a pan, grilling some meat, roasting some root vegetables, very, very easy. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It does take a little bit of preparation in the form of shopping. But the reality is that all of us have to shop for food anyway. And we do have to prepare food. So very simply prepared food does not take a lot of time at all. And again, I went through this steep learning curve. I had this paradigm shift. I had to do it. Otherwise, I would have been dead. But the reality is, I'm not dead. Cooking food simply is very easy and extremely tasty. A great way to get started on this is to do something called the Whole30. Get any of the Whole30 books or look it up on the website, whole30.com. Melissa Hartwig is amazing as far as helping people just go back to finding out what real food is by eating whole food for 30 days, cutting out sugar, cutting out grains, cutting out dairy, cutting out the things that cause inflammation. So once you realize that what real food is by doing a Whole30, and after those 30 days, your body gets better. And if not, some people really do have to do like a whole 60 days or a whole 90 days, however long it takes them to get better. Keeping in mind that it takes 6 months to a year for your intestines to grow back or your villi to grow back if you have celiac disease or damaged intestines from anything else. So it does take a little bit of time. So I like to say, if you're not getting better right away, give it a tincture of time. A tincture of time will actually help heal your body. Not everything happens immediately. And unfortunately, as Americans or as people in general, we all just want to take a pill to get us better for whatever symptom or whatever thing ails us. And at some point, there's not going to be any pills anymore. It's just the changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, and recognizing that how we live has a huge impact on our health. And certainly what we're eating has an even bigger impact on our health. So ideally, you're going to get better by realizing it is easy to eat well. It is no more expensive than eating any other way, and it is sustainable. As I've said, I've done some variation of this for the last 11 years. I did start off on just a gluten-free diet and actually replacing many of the gluten-containing foods with gluten-free versions of those, and I just don't do it anymore. Those gluten-free versions of pasta and bread and things like that are really just empty calories also, and I want to eat the highest nutrient-dense foods that I can. So sticking with things that are nutrient-dense, such as fruits and vegetables that are organic, nuts and seeds, meat, fish, and eggs, my body is able to heal over the last 11 years, and I am much better than I've ever been. You do have to take into account that even a breadcrumb or a dusting of flour, if you have celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity, will prevent you from getting 100% better. So please do be aware of cross-contamination, whether it's in your kitchen or a restaurant's kitchen or wherever it is that you're eating. So be aware that those old cutting boards or things that you used to use in your kitchen for baking with wheat flour need to be replaced. Toasters need to be replaced, especially if you're going to eat any of the gluten-free bread. I figured it was just not worth it for me to get another toaster. And I eat tuna with, again, minimally processed. I live in Oregon, so we have access to lots of great fresh wild fish. I have farmers that raise fabulous gluten-free eggs. Don't laugh. It's true. I'm going to have Cynthia on to interview her about and have her tell us about her farm called Midway Farms and why and how she grows the food that she does. Fresh fruits and vegetables that are organic. The same with the nuts and seeds. Organic. A lot of the seed companies the nut companies are maybe not organic. So you do want to know where your nuts come from and make sure that they're not cross-contaminated with any wheat, barley, rye, or oats. So just a quick recap, do a quick inventory, see how you feel. If you have any nagging aches or pains that you want to go away, consider changing your diet and make it simple. Don't make it hard. If it's hard, you're doing it wrong. So make it simple. Even if you're just doing the same few recipes over and over for the first little bit until you get the hang of making real food, get some really simple cookbooks. There's some fabulous cookbooks out there. The Whole30 cookbooks are a great way to get started. Melissa Hartwig is the author of those. Also, the Paleo magazine is a great way to get ideas and information. Paleo magazine is available worldwide. And the editor, Kane Credicott, is a good friend of mine, and we all live in Oregon. So, I feel blessed and lucky that I live in such a fabulous place where I have access to fresh food and great friends that are educated and knowledgeable about all of these things. Makes my job and my life so much easier. But take control of your food, take control of your life. Find the people that will help you change your diet and change your life, because that's really what we're talking about, so that you can get your health back and that you can let go of the stressors that don't really count. And you will find that this gets easier as your body gets healthier and you get your brain back. As most of you know that have listened to any of the other podcasts, I'm a big advocate for people getting their brains back. And one way you can keep your brain healthy is by providing the foods that will feed your neurologic system, which is your brain, and your enteric nervous system, which is in your intestines, by the way, and your central nervous system. I hope this information has been helpful not only to the new people or the people that are considering going gluten-free or found out that they have celiac disease, but also for the people that are gluten-free already or paleo or have already started the journey of a lifestyle change and making sure that their health is optimized by the food that you're eating. The whole reason for this podcast is to make sure that you have information and support and know that you too can have a healthy body and a healthy brain. It is very important for those of us that have this information to pass it along and make sure that you have access to it. So hopefully episode 66 has allowed you to review some of the things in your life and will help you make decisions regarding your future health and also help you realize how easy it is to change your diet. Despite the fact that it sounds so daunting, it really is quite easy. Especially once you get the hang of it, it becomes your lifestyle. It's been my lifestyle for 11 years now, and I would not change a thing. There's no way I would go back to eating what I now look at as not only not food, but poison to my body. So get educated, change how you eat, or modify the gluten-free or paleo diet that you already have. Keep up the good work. Do more research, and you can become an educator about this too. Everybody is going to have to start to look at their diet, whether they're celiac or not. And I highly recommend that people do this sooner than later. So therefore, episode 66 has been dedicated to how to easily go gluten-free or paleo, and to give you some ideas about why it's so important and how to do it. Thanks so much for joining me, Nadine Griskowiak, the Gluten Free RN, for episode 66. Thanks again for listening. To all the people that have listened for every episode, and to all the new people, welcome. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Gluten Free RN. Have a great day. Bye.